Have you ever heard that in the same burials in ancient Egypt the roughly made clay pottery and the perfect quality stone vessels were found together? Moreover, according to the official history, all of those stone vessels were created around the Stone Age and the Late Copper Age. And after that period of time, people just stopped making them. Today, we are gonna talk about all those unusual facts. I'm ondrashsabo, an independent researcher of prehistoric culture. Some years ago, I've decided to move to Egypt. I've been motivated by only one question: who was the mysterious ancient civilization who built the pyramids and the temples on this sacred land? Subscribe to my channel to visit a lot of unique places and to get advice how to have your own great adventure in Egypt. Let's search for the answers together.
Hello everyone, I'm ondrashsabo. Tens of thousands of stone vessels were discovered in pre-dynastic and early dynastic burials in ancient Egypt. And these burials can be found all around Egypt. Official history asserts that those artifacts belong to different prehistoric cultures, such as the Badarian culture, the Nakada culture, the Gerzek culture, as well as to the first three dynasties of the Old Kingdom. To guide you around the timeline, I would like to mention that those cultures relate to the period between 4500 and 2700 BC, or the pre-pyramid time. The later period shows a smaller number of those stone vessels. Let's try to imagine a civilization who would switch from the perfect quality stone-made dwellings to the mud huts, without any known reason. Unfortunately, not many people would question these matters today.
When you stay in Egypt, even with your shallow knowledge of Arabian language, but with much more time to spend on archaeological sites to compare with the tourists, you definitely have a chance to meet and to chat with the local people. The locals are happy to share their experience and to tell you the stories they have heard. You can also meet the local people who often participate in the archaeological excavations. Once, while I was talking to the local person, I was shown a few old photographs of the burial sites, where clay pottery and stone vessels were found together close to the mummified body. Later, I've learned that those burial sites dated back to the pre-dynastic period, the period of time which comes before the time of the unified Egypt and the beginning of the early dynasty. At that time, the prehistoric people just started to use copper tools. There are a lot of burial sites that were discovered by the famous archaeologists like Flinders Petrie, Edward Quibble, George Andrew Reisner, and Walter Bryan Emery. There are the same burials that have been found nowadays as well. Flinders Petrie was the first archaeologist who admitted the importance of the clay pottery unearthed on the burial sites. He classified the findings, so today the archaeologists could identify the inhabitants of the given area according to the pottery's shape, material, firing process, quality, and other characteristics. A lot of roughly worked stone vessels were found on the territory of Merimde, a Neolithic settlement site located in the Nile Delta and dated to 5000 BC. 500 years later, the quality of the stone vessels belonging to the Badarian culture became much better, as well as the number of the discovered artifacts got much higher. There were not roughly worked objects, but very well-made vessels, from such hard rocks as basalt, granite, breccia, diorite, amethyst, obsidian, rock crystal, and even quartz. Later, at the time of the 4th dynasty of the Old Kingdom, around 26th century BC, for unknown reason the number of the stone vessels inside the burials started to decrease. During the further history of Egypt, just a few stone artifacts from such hard rocks were found. There are many independent researchers who have been studying the materials and technologies of ancient Egypt. They all agree with the fact that during the pre-dynastic and archaic periods, the number of the stone vessels was the highest to compare with other periods. I would like to name the most distinguished scientists among them, such Egyptologists and chemists as Alfred Lucas, Paul Nicholson, Ian Shaw, and Barbara Aston. Here is what Alfred Lucas writes about this in the book Ancient Egyptian Materials and Industries. The stone vessel industry reached its zenith during the early dynastic period, and nowhere has there been found such a wealth of beautifully made handsome stone vessels as in Egypt. Towards the end of the Old Kingdom, the number of these stone vessels decreased considerably, most of the harder stones entirely out of use for this purpose. Approximately 73.5% of all stone materials used for manufacturing the vessels consists of three types of rock, such as limestone 36%, basalt 21.5%, travertine, more commonly known as Egyptian alabaster, 16%. The rest, 26.5%, includes other types of rock, such as breccia, marble, diorite, amethyst, or crystal. The following table shows how the exact stone vessels have been dated. The upper row names the periods of ancient Egypt, and the left table names the different kinds of stone material which was used for the vessel manufacture. The blue color indicates the soft rocks, and the red color the hard ones. Clearly, the stone vessels made out of hard rock dated back to the period between pre-dynastic time and the time of the Old Kingdom. Why is it so? Let's try to find out the answer. To start with, let's figure out what is meant by the term hard rock. To define the hardness of the minerals, we do use the 10-point Mohs hardness scale. There are 10 minerals used as a standard, arranged in order of increasing hardness. The very first and at the same time the softest is talc, and the hardest is diamond. The scale is created for the rough comparative evaluation of the mineral hardness according to the softer, harder system. The given material can scratch the material from the table set, and its hardness is higher against the Mohs scale, or can be scratched and determined with the lower number of the scale. As for the stone vessels, the hardness on the Mohs scale of the rock materials that have been mentioned before would fall between 6 and 7, depending on the proportion of the mineral components. I would like to mention that the limestone takes just 3rd or 4th place on the scale. What could it possibly mean? According to the scale, neither copper nor the bronze tools which fall between 3rd and 5th place on this scale can leave scratches on these hard rocks. And it's not definitely like those tools might be used for working on these hard materials. The official history, of course, suggests a kind of solution and explains the manufacture of the stone vessels by the usage of quartz sand as an abrasive material. Nowadays, for the reasonable explanation regarding the ancient Egyptians' work with the hard rock materials, some scientists also mention corundum as an abrasive material, which is one step lower than the diamond on the Mohs scale. They conducted a lot of experiments as well to try to prove to the representatives of the alternative history that the ancient Egyptians could create those stone vessels in the Stone Age. The experts in the field of experimental archaeology and sculptures were invited to carry out such experiments. Here are just a few interesting results. It takes about 490 hours of non-stop work and 16 kg of copper to cut in half just 1 cubic meter of granite with the usage of dry abrasive material. It takes about 4 months with 5 days a week and 8 hours working days to produce a marble jar 8 by 14 cm size. And I would like to mention that the marble takes just 4th place on the Mohs scale. To conduct the experiment, they used both stone and copper tools. In August 2020, a new experiment to create a diorite jar using ancient tools and methods has been started. There have been a lot of failures, and finally the stone just has been broken in half. But in January 2021, this experiment is still ongoing, and no one knows how long it might take. Thus, the cost of just one stone jar are comparable to the 6-month salary of a qualified specialist. But tens of thousands of such vessels were discovered in Egypt. As you can see, such experiments perfectly show and once again prove that the ancient people had no ability to make those stone vessels. Over the past decade, the research team of the Laboratory of Alternative History has discovered and analyzed hundreds of marks left by processing tools on ancient artifacts. Similar traces were found not only in Egypt, but also in many other countries. The purpose of the research was to find out what kind of tools was used by the ancients to work with the hard rock materials. The research on the alloy composition of the detected microscopic particles gave incredible results. It turned out that it was a super hard alloy, similar to the one used in mechanical engineering, aircraft, and even missile production. The main question is how it could be possible for the Neolithic people to create those perfect quality vessels by using just the stone tools, without knowing yet about the wheel, iron, or even bronze. In the archaeological reports, one can find the detailed sketches of all those burial sites and the artifacts that have been studied. We can also see which archaeological objects have been discovered together and dated at around the same period of time. For example, here you can see the knife from the pre-dynastic period. And here is the stone arrowhead. Here you can see the stone vessels dated at around the same time. But how is it possible, as one can obviously see the huge difference regarding the quality of design and work of these artifacts? The only theory that might help to explain this kind of inconsistency is that those high-quality stone vessels were made much earlier by another highly developed ancient civilization. The Neolithic people could just find the vessels or receive them as a gift. We can assume that the Stone Age people tried to reproduce those artifacts using available tools and materials, as they found those vessels very useful in their household. The discovered stone vessels were made in different shapes, and the prehistoric people tried to copy all of those shapes. That could be a reason why the Nakada culture has such variety of the pottery types. Perhaps we should be grateful to the craftsmen who created the stone vessels, as these artifacts as well became the prototype of the modern-day ceramics. And finally, Djoser, the pharaoh of the 3rd dynasty of the Old Kingdom, comes to power. He is well known as the owner of the step pyramid in Saqqara. He might be the one who decided to collect all stone vessels and other artifacts and hide them inside the underground chambers of the step pyramid. He might see the artifacts left from the earlier time as a cultural heritage from the beyond age of gods. This is how the famous saqqara collection of over 40,000 stone jars might have been created. The small part of the collection is still under the step pyramid and away from the eyes of the researchers and tourists. The vessels are unique not only by their quality, but might have unique functions according to their shapes. However, they are displayed in the museums under the classification as jars or vases. But was the ancient highly developed civilization a reality? Or could it be just imaginary gods from the ancient Egypt times? We are grateful to such an outstanding researcher as Andrei Sklarov, who dedicated his life to researching for evidence of the existence of an ancient, technologically highly developed civilization. Now we know that such civilization had existed before.
Facts that in the ancient times some highly advanced civilization was operating on Earth are obvious. These facts do exist. Moreover, it was a technically advanced civilization that had a developed machine tools industry. There are huge amounts of these traces on the ancient objects. We found thousands of them with highly technology features. So in my opinion, the discussion about the existence of some ancient technically advanced civilization is over. It existed. There are traces of it.
Such artifacts, their dating methods, and the look at them from a slightly different angle, perhaps are unusual for the representatives of the official history. But once again it shows us that something must be wrong with our history as we know it. Let me know your opinion in the comment section below. My friends, that is it for today. Thank you for your attention and see you on my next video. Bye!
After we finish here, I want to say thank you too much, and I want to say thank you because you take stuff from us to help all my family. Always we will remember you. Okay. Thank you for your visiting to us.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new and interesting. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video and leave your comments below.